is the Bill Squire Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Bill Squire Show. I am your host, Bill Squire, and a couple quick things before we get started. I'm having Adam Lohrbach on from Homegrown, one of my favorite bands of all time. Listened to them all through like high school and my early 20s, and just love this band. And being able to talk with him is very exciting. And also merch. I got merch now. So if you go to linktree.com/Bill Squire, or you go to any of my social media profiles, there's the Bill Squire store. And you may have seen some of the stuff I posted on social media. If you guys want to get some of that stuff, there's a Whoopsie shirt that says, there is no joy without destruction. I have some Bill Squire stuff. I have some of my old t-shirts I'm going to be putting up there from when I used to do them for the Alan Cox Show comedy tour. So if you guys want to check those out, I'd appreciate it. It's t-shirts, and there's a coffee mug, and there's a bunch of different stuff. So whatever you get from there, it helps support me in this doing this podcast. And that's that. And right now, let's talk with Adam Lohrbach from Homegrown.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm here with Adam Lohrbach from Homegrown and New Year's Day, and now he's got a new project that he's working on called Radical, which is a kind of therapeutic punk rock journey into just to kind of fulfill your creative needs and kind of explore that who you were and what you weren't, and the way you've talked about it on your Instagram and kind of the teaser post is very it's deep. It's not just some like light I felt like doing some songs. Like this is something that kind of has been awoken in you.
Yeah, awoken. I think that's a good way of saying it, man. It was it really just started as poetry. I think, like I'd kind of said on one of my posts, it was normally I would write the music and the melody. I'm such a fan of hooks and, that kind of catchy sound, no matter what it sounds like. It doesn't always have to be pop punk, but I love a good hook. I love a good lead line, those type of things. But for this, I just had a lot to say, and I had a lot to process. And it honestly wasn't lyrics. It just somehow found its way there in the midst of all the mess, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And the therapy needed an out, and for whatever reason, it was just whatever those roots of the whole punk rock sound, it just somehow it stuck and it made sense and it was easy. And it's just like, man, I like this approach.
Is this something that came from the pandemic, from being able, kind of being more stuck at home and things like that, or were there other things that contributed to this creative process?
It started well before. It started when I'm turning 46, man. It's crazy, time flies. But I'm turning 46 in March. My birthday's March 7th. This started this sort of diving in, more like introspective, self-examination type journey, which led to some dark places. Started when I was about 41. I don't know what it is. I've talked to some other people too. When you get to this sort of middle-aged spot in life, you start looking back on your life and then looking at where you're presently in your life and where you're headed. And if there's a lot to be learned, right? It's good.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't change any of it. Like, I mean, the kind of the darker spaces that I went to, it was pretty miserable, but what came out of it and the lessons I learned, I guess, and like being able to sort of own my own story rather than just sort of letting my story run on autopilot and doing things I don't even know why I do them.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of things that are just not totally the way they should, kind of just off track. Now I was able to like identify it, even go back to my childhood and go, oh, that's why I do that. Oh man, I'm getting wrecked here. I didn't even know I was doing this stuff for these reasons. So, I mean, your mind gets blown.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about, because that's kind of, I mean, just doing like the podcast, I do stand-up comedy, I do the radio show. So like I'm always talking about these different experiences. And then when you say it out loud, or you have to think about it, and someone can give you that. Sometimes it's someone, sometimes it's yourself, but you go, why am I this way? Why is this thing scary to me, but this thing's not? Why am I so open about this aspect of my life, but so closed off about this, this aspect, and you start to get introspective and you start to learn about yourself, and like you said, it can get you into a dark place, but
Yeah.
going through that dark place rather than just staying there is very therapeutic, and it can and bring so much light to your life once you get past it.
Yeah. Oh man, well said. Yeah, and that's the beauty, right? Is once you've learned something, once you've grown through something, especially the hard stuff, because no one wants to hear about how all the rainbows and butterflies. Like, what's your life like? Oh, it's great. I'm successful. Everything's great, and
Yeah.
making tons of money. My family's good, right? It's like, well, cool. What do you have to share? It's like
Mhm.
those darker spaces. Unfortunately, once you're able to actually sort of go through them, you can hopefully help someone else go through it. And
Yeah.
journey is unique, right? But there's still so much wisdom that you can find, that you can share, that resonates. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's just,
And then being
it's
willing
true.
to share it, and finding different ways to share, like you doing this new radical project is, it connects to your creative roots, doing pop punk music, which you did for the early part of your teens into your 30s almost.
Yeah.
So having that kind of come back around, and kind of bubble up inside you and become the outlet for it is pretty cool and pretty exciting for a fan like me, who, I was a huge fan of Homegrown, still a huge fan of Homegrown, but
Oh, right on,
uh
man. Right on. Yeah.
like I went and saw you half a dozen times or so, and you know it was always something about your guys' music, and especially the songs that you wrote were always, uh I feel like, multi-level, where there was some silliness in them, but there was also some deeper meanings, and then some of them were just straight, like, You're Not Alone or Suffer. Like, those are things where, like, they were rocking and I loved them, but also, like, when I would sit back and, like, listen to the lyrics, I'm like, man, this guy's got a little bit more depth than uh other people in this scene, it seems like.
Mm. Wow. Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's crazy that even going back and listen to some of my old catalog stuff with a new perspective, right?
Yeah.
I can actually go back and go, oh man, I wrote this. I thought I was writing it because I was feeling this way, right?
Hmm.
Which is true at the moment. But there's like, oh, but I was feeling that way because of this and this and this about myself I didn't even know. And it's just like, your mind gets blown. It's like,
Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of the themes, I feel like in your songs, are about dealing with that transition from childhood to adulthood, and so, like, you felt this whole responsibility to, like, have a certain amount of, you know accomplishments when you're in your early 20s, where you should be done with college and you should be finding your career and maybe settling, like, finding a wife. And when you
yeah,
take the musical path, you're not going to match up with the norm. So I feel like you had a kind of like an arrested development feeling, but you also seemed more emotionally mature than some other people would be at that age, and it was
hmm.
wrapped in, music and rock, and also a lot of humor too. I feel like you guys had, some tongue in cheek stuff too.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that was a big part of it too, right? Is like the humor, the banter, and it, I mean, yeah, there's something lyrically to present for sure, right? But it's like it's a part of a giant package of who you are. Like we're just a bunch of crazy, rambunctious
Mhm.
SoCal kids exploring music, just having fun. It was never like oh, we want to get successful in this, and sort of
Yeah.
building and strategizing. It was honestly just all I, a lot of it was just like being ourselves, being goofballs, and getting enough attention that it actually got us somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and that's
we
what
we
resonated
we
with me
weren't
was,
masterful. We were
yeah.
just honestly very fortunate, and
Yeah, but that's what resonated with me was the silliness, but then, like, also, like, the passion that was in behind the silliness. Like, you guys were funny and enjoyable on stage, and music was starting to go into that emo phase too around then, where people were
yeah,
taking everything so serious and it had to be so dark, and to have something that was kind of lighter and kind of, easier for me especially to process at that time was
yeah,
very enjoyable and very much what I needed. But then, like I said, there was still layers to it where there was serious things being talked about, relationships and growing up and just trying to figure out your life. But it was also like you did it all with a smile on your face rather than the Dashboard Confessional was kind of a contemporary then, and it became so like if you didn't cry on stage, then people were like, "Oh, did they even perform?"
Gotta be more vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Even if it's inauthentic, be more
Right. Yeah.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
No, no, no.
Yeah. Just
But
sure it
no,
happened.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, that was yeah. The emo scene was pretty raw. It was. There's a lot of good stuff in the emo scene for sure. I
Oh,
know you'd agree on
absolutely.
that.
There,
For
there,
sure. It's not a
right. And there was a lot of,
marking
and
against them, but
it's like anything. Like there's a lot of good stuff in the emo scene. There's a lot of great stuff in the pop punk scene, but there's a lot of trash in both too. I mean, it's like anything.
yeah, yeah.
There's
That's
there's
right.
plenty of good and bad in all of them. But it was also funny to
Yeah.
see, like, to go back and watch the music video for "You're Not Alone," and to see the emo kid in that, and what the early emo thing was way more like Rivers Cuomo looking than what
Yeah.
emo ended up being. But it was like, yeah, it's like the sweater and the glasses, and it was like more of this like nerdcore thing, and then it ended up
Yeah.
getting into like the whole, it was basically goth.
Yeah, a little goth,
Yeah.
little yeah, just a little
And
almost
scene.
grungy
Yeah.
sometimes too. Like, yeah. Yep. Oh man, memories, man.
Right. So you were in Homegrown for years and years, and then you made that transition. Uh, what's what have you been doing besides music? I know you have some kids, and you're living the adult life now. And
Yep.
is that part of what's kind of put you into that introspective place where you're like, okay, I have kids and I have responsibilities? Is that kind of what brought that out of you?
Hmm. Well, I've got three boys.
Hmm.
I've been married, just celebrated just last week, 15 years of marriage. It's been awesome.
Congratulations, that's great.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, my wife, she's incredible. She's been with me through thick and thin. We met while I was in Homegrown. We were together for 4 years, and it's been a wild ride. Uh, but I've been ever since I got out of the band, probably like a lot of band members and stuff. Um, you realize if all you can do is play an instrument and life's pretty easy, and then you get married and you have to sort of make a way, you're like, wow, I have to figure out life pretty
Yeah.
quickly. So I did things like, I got involved in drywall. I did drywall for years. I did
Okay.
electrical work. I was a patio furniture salesman, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then kids, and I've always loved music. And
Hmm.
I had my faith. I'm a Christian,
Yeah.
so that's always been really important to me. And I
And I've
got
you are is that how you're making your living right now? Are you, because I thought I saw that you're like a preacher or
yeah, I do all the music at a church. I've been doing it called The Bridge. It's for 14 years. So
okay.
it's like developing teams, developing like youth teams. So
Mhm.
like music is, it looks a little bit different obviously than touring days, but
Yeah, but
my
it's
life is
still
just completely sort of saturated in that, and helping develop people and build them up, and
that's
love people. So
well, that's great, and it's nice to hear
yeah,
the love side of it, because we're living in a time. I was raised in a Mormon religion, and I
yeah,
I kind of went the opposite way where that wasn't serving me, and so I've definitely kind of had this tumultuous journey to try and like I love the teachings of Jesus, but I don't really believe in the whole you know theology of it, but I like the
mm,
principles that I have, and so I try to live those.
sure,
And when you have people in this world right now where they're claiming to be this or that, and they're not, you know, expressing the love, and they're not being understanding, and they're not being caring, and you're like, well, you're kind of missing the point. And that's the thing that drives me crazy,
yeah,
is where it's like, all right, well, here's what Jesus taught, and then you're really closing off a lot of different things, and really being not the best example of someone that follows Jesus.
yeah, man. I there's no defense for that, right? It's just
Yeah, it just
mess
makes you it
mess.
makes you nuts. It makes you
It
nuts.
makes it hard. It puts a
Yeah.
barrier for sure. People are messy when they're figuring out things. A lot of times people start getting into whatever faith or whatever their why is, right? People
Yeah.
figure out their
I like
the
that.
the
Whatever their why is.
the deeper why of what sort of motivates things, and how that plays out, and how you sort of learn things, and then decide how you project the way you learn and how you want to inform others and stuff. You take all the, like, yeah, I mean, I was right. I'd been in ministry. I've been doing stuff, helping people, doing things. And yet when I was like, I've been doing that for what, 10 years before all of a sudden I hit like a big wall
Yeah.
myself. So I would think, oh, I've got things pretty figured out. I know how to do this and love and serve, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, what? I'm the dark, depressed guy that's like not talking to anybody, like
What was that
it's
wall, if you
just,
don't mind me asking?
ooh, um, that's deep, man. Sorry, just to hear someone ask so bluntly. It's good. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So I did. There's this tool, and it can be used for like a faith tool. It can be used for anybody, but it's
mm,
this thing called the Enneagram.
mhm.
And if you've heard of things like the INFJs, all these different sort of
Right.
like
Yeah, yeah.
personality type things, yeah. This is one that read my mail, and it was like almost humiliating to see like what who I am,
Yeah.
how things would have probably shaped me as a
Mhm.
child, and how I responded to things, and conflict for me, especially things, avoidance, not taking a lot of initiative, all these type of things, right? I'm reading myself in a book, and it was dead on. And
Yeah, can we talk about that avoidance part of that real quick?
I
Because
was
that's
humiliated. It was
definitely
hard.
that avoidance is something that I've always struggled with, where, when you're confronted with something, you just pretend it's not there, or you really don't want to confront it. And confronting something like that, and learning that about yourself, is a huge step. And so that's, I was the people pleaser type, where I would tell people what they wanted to hear all the time, even if it's
Yeah.
not what I really felt. and
Mm.
and that was, in a way, me avoiding that controversy, or that confrontation.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds a lot like me, man.
Yeah.
It's right. So like for me, like peace for me just is very important.
Yeah.
Right. And so I will unfortunately protect that. If I'm not careful and I don't pay attention to what I'm doing, I'll protect that in unhealthy ways. Right. That means just like you, I'll do almost like merge with other people. Maybe I'll have passions or dreams or ideas, but it'll come at the cost of not helping other people out in their passions and dreams. And so that tension that it creates in me to not be available, or to not help when I see I can help someone else, right? To actually
Mhm.
consider myself, that can give me a lot of anxiety. And so I've lived a lot of my life just going, I have idea, but that I don't want to stir the pot. I don't want to disappoint. So, what do you want to do? Let's make that really great. Oh, what do you want to do? Let's do that. And all the time I'm a ghost,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow. Yeah. That's,
And
man,
so,
that's a great way to put it, is, I'm a ghost, because that's like how I went through a good portion of my life, in different facets too, where I just was there to be, I was servicing other people, but I wasn't actually helping, because I wasn't giving them the honest version of me.
yes. Yeah, man.
This is very
It's brutal.
insightful.
It's brutal when you figure it out, huh?
I know,
When you
I love
actually,
it though, but it's
when
it's
you figure it
it's
out, it's like, oh, gosh, dang it. So then you have to figure out how you have to like, because like when I get into conflict, right, even if it's good, like I know I need to be not a jerk, but I need to be assertive,
yes.
because it's important for the relationship, not just for me, but it's important, like, right, to show
Mhm.
yourself, to show what you value, what you care about, and not disrespectfully, but to respect that. You would assume that in a good, healthy relationship, they would want to know you, right?
Right.
So when you start making those first steps, it can be really awkward. I don't know how to handle anger very well. I like run from it, right? It's like anger is like a scary emotion. And
Yeah.
so when you repress that for long enough, right? It's time doesn't I've discovered time doesn't really heal wounds for me, right? It just masks them until they decide to just explode in another way. And
Or
so when
or maybe
you
they
start
get triggered by another
yeah, and
thing.
then
Yeah.
something hits it. Yeah, ping, ping,
Yeah.
ping, 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 and then or you just or a couple dominoes fall, right? Maybe you can live life with just one domino falling every once in a while, and you're like, okay, and you just fall back to the what's easy.
Mhm.
But then there's those moments where 4 or 5 drop, and you're like, oh, I'm exposed.
Yeah.
I'm a I'm a mess, and I'm a mess, and I'm gonna mess you up too. You know, it's
Yeah.
like,
And that's
ah,
like one of the things that I would do in my like relationships is because I didn't know how to express what I wanted or what I was, unhappy with or what I was even happy with. I would go too long with saying it without saying anything, and then it would become this catastrophic moment where I'd either self-sabotage or I would just blow up and that anger would show up, and it was never constructive. And like to figure that out and do the work and learn how to be constructively uh forward with your significant other or a friend or even a coworker, and just be able
yeah,
to tell them what you want without having to get to that point of like just anger or even just dread of having to talk about it is such a nice lesson to learn.
yeah. Good on you, man. Sounds like you've done a lot of self reflection and
Yeah, I mean, some of it
examination, man. It's not easy. It takes a lot of courage, man. It
it
takes a
takes a
lot of
lot, and it
courage.
takes I didn't always do it in the most constructive ways either. It's one
Yeah.
of those things where sometimes it's more of a crash course, or
Yeah.
you're learning from the mistakes and putting things back together and wondering how
Yeah.
you got there. And then but also being open about it. And like I'm on a talk radio show, and so like I've always been pretty open about things. But when you're open to about things to that large of an audience, sometimes people will just pick on you, and because they're just jerks. But then there's a lot of people that they really care about you, and that when you open up about that, they can relate to it, or they can actually explain to they can be a nice sounding board to help you understand why you're doing that, or why you're so afraid of.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. That's awesome. Good for you for making those type of connections. That's honestly, that's the kind of thing I'm looking to do too. It's like the
Mhm.
same thing with like music and um like this project and the radical stuff. It's just powerful, like what happens in the connections. And
Uh,
it's a way more fun approach. Like at least for
Agreed.
me,
Yeah.
it's yeah, like it before it's like a rat race. Like when you're doing music and like you're trying to make it right. Like with any
Mhm.
profession, if you're looking to sort of climb the ladder in a sense, what I discovered like back in the homegrown days is you get to one level, right? Maybe you play a show you always want to play. Oh, cool. You play a venue and you think, that was your it. But then you get there, it's not your it. And then you play with your favorite band and you get it. That's not the it. And then you get signed. And you're like, oh, I can't believe it. But then that fades too, right? So everything fades. And then all of a sudden you get in a more competitive stance, even where you're watching, how am I doing compared to this band now and this? Oh, we've waited too long between records, and oh, this tour, these numbers aren't quite the same. We didn't sell out as fast, and right. And it's just like, and all this, you're here from where you were thought you'd be happy.
Yeah.
It never stops. So like now having like a different approach, like, you know what? My metric is helping people.
Mhm.
My metric is making connections and helping people with their journey and doing it in a really fun way with fun music that I love and I know people like are enjoy too. And so either one, you're just a listener, you love the music, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. I got no problem with that. But then maybe there's some are like, man, this is kind of helpful. It gives me a little bit of language maybe for what I'm sort of dealing with.
Mhm.
And that for me is like the big win. And so my metric isn't like making a bunch of money or selling a bunch of merch. Sure, it'd be great to like monetize, and do
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things that help me put more time into it, right? But as long as I stay in that place, man, if it's helpful, then I'm satisfied.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And that's why, especially this year with everything kind of shutting down and me losing the live performance, which is such a big thing for me, going and doing stand-up comedy and having that call and response and being able to kind of treat that like a place to work out some of my demons and some of those ideas in a fun way, like you said, and connect
Yeah.
with people, and kind of having to reroute that, and then also kind of develop some balance in my life that was completely missing because I was doing that what you're talking about, where you're working so hard and you're pushing yourself and you're comparing yourself to others, and you want to just keep going and going, and then it leaves you with this emptiness. And then this year forced me to step back, and I go, okay, well, what do I really want? What can really make me happy? And so then I step back, and I start focusing on more than just one aspect of my life, and it really did help. And as much as I miss going out and being able to perform stand-up comedy every night, I have a lot more balance. I have hobbies that I haven't had for a while, and kind of rekindled some of those passions that give you that balance, that make life so much more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. You're taking care of your soul.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah, love
with
that.
Radical, I first of all, I love the just all the work that I'm sure has gone into the branding of it, and like the design is great. Is
Oh,
that
thank
you
you.
too, or is that you working with other people?
Uh, at this point, aside from the music video, shout out to Frank. He's incredible. I'll be doing a lot of footage on that soon, but it's all me. It's
Well, it's good stuff,
it's
man. And
oh,
it,
thanks.
like
Thanks.
just the design itself, for like the logo for Radical is like, I noticed it and I was like, oh, that's real like clever, and I appreciate it. So
Oh,
it
thanks, man.
yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. It's affirming, it's like, oh, okay, because this sounds really silly,
Mhm.
but it's I want to make the connections, but there's a part of this story and this journey. Remember when we were just talking about earlier about how you sort of do what other people want to do, or you kind of influenced by things. There's
Yeah.
something about this where, at least from the start of it, I just had to take ownership of all of it, and not in like a selfish way, but in almost like a revealing of myself way.
Yeah.
And so, like, artistically, direction, music, like all the instruments, it's 100% like you know, it's 100% played by me. It's all me, and not to say it's like a me show, but it's like it
Right.
was a part almost of the healing to go. I just need to do something all on my own and just present it.
Well,
So
that's
I'm
it.
glad you like. All to say, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, and that's
It's
really
good.
cool, and that's like part of the fun challenge, and like being creative, like having that, those different aspects, and like to be able to spin that many plates too is pretty awesome. To be able to do design and put the music together, and then do the video and the editing and all that stuff that goes into it is it's pretty cool, and it's impressive. And it's cool too that we live in a time where you can do all that stuff on your own, and then get it to people that will care about it because of the internet, and not have to go through a label or go through a distributor or something like that.
Yeah,
You just kind of connect to them directly, and it's nice to have that. And so going back to some homegrown days,
yeah.
I mean, I saw you guys one time. Me and my buddy drove to Pittsburgh in his crappy van, took back roads all the way there. So it was like I think it was Homegrown and like Zebra Head, and maybe Weedus was on the show.
Zebrahead. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
man.
And
They had a good show. They had a good
it
show.
was a great show. And
They're very energetic.
we I walked past you and just was able to say hi to you on the street, and that was a pretty cool moment. But then on the way back, his van broke down, and me and his girlfriend had to ride in the van on the back of a tow truck to get it all the way back to Ohio. And
But
like
you'll never forget it, huh?
I'll never
It
forget
made
it,
the
man.
whole.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, it made the experience even better, man. That's rad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Well, thanks for
Uh,
all the ticket sales.
hey, you're welcome, man. And merch. I got some T-shirts that I don't fit into anymore, but I got them.
Nice, dude. The merch is hard to find.
Yeah,
Hang on to it, man. A bunch of people keep asking me for like, Homegrown, you got it? I'm like, man,
that's long
I'm all,
ago.
if I could find it, I would get it. I would buy it. Like, I
I'll
scour eBay and stuff looking for homegrown stuff.
I got it in storage, so I'll hang on to it, and maybe post a picture on Instagram and tag you in it.
Yeah, dude, tag me in it. That'd be awesome.
When you guys were touring, like what would you say the height of the Homegrown era was? Like where was I mean, I know you guys did some big tours. You did the Warp Tour with the Drive Through
Yeah.
Records, and the music videos and stuff like that. Crouching Fish Hidden Finger Tour, I think you guys were on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Is
you
that
guys
the Real Big Fish one? I'm
has
trying
a
to
Real Big
remember if
Fish and
that
Goldfinger.
Real Big Fish. Yeah, Goldfinger. Yeah, that was a great tour. Yeah, I mean, in the season kind of sort of when we signed a drive through,
Yeah.
because we'd been grinding out, we we had put out the album before, it's called Act Your Age,
Hmm.
and that was released through Outpost Recordings, which right after we kind of got signed, got bought out, like the label. There's like, back then there's a lot of corporate mergers and things, and so we kind of got lost in it, lost all of our tour support, lost everything as they were trying to figure out which bands go, which bands stay. That was like a common thing. They sort of absorb things, spend a year or so looking in, what do we want to do with this? And then no, sort out. So you're stuck in limbo. So we had, as a band sort of just said, we want to do this. And so we just grinded for years, right? Just touring for years, just doing it on our own. And so when we signed a drive through, and it was good, it got us to a place where we could make a living. Um, but it was, it's hard.
Yeah.
And when we signed a drive through, it was like the scene, all it's like it re-exploded. It was like everything just started happening. Getting on great tours. Drive through had a lot of vision for good tours and keeping a lot of the sort of drive through catalog together to make sure that there's a lot of like partnership and lifting other
Yeah.
artists up. And then of course from there, once you get enough of a following, you get asked to do tours like Goldfinger tours, right? Or ones, because they go, okay, you have this much draw, you're worth that. So you get asked to be on these bigger tours. And so probably those later times, right? Like
Yeah.
the drive through years is when things really just
Picked up.
accelerated, and overseas too, because that was kind of a new phenomenon for us,
Oh,
as
that's cool.
overseas too. So, and it was like, oh, this is fun,
So you got to do like a
Yeah.
whole world tour and everything. Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Saw you at the Agora in Cleveland a few times as well. And so yeah, maybe saw you 10 times. I'm not sure exactly, but I definitely was at plenty of shows and had a great time. And like you said, like the banter on stage and the fun on stage was just uh what kept me coming back, because as much as I love the music, just you guys put me in a great mood, and it was just like being able to watch someone and like watch you guys not be afraid to do a little banter on stage was great,
Yeah.
because some bands were so like boring with it.
That was, I mean, that was a fun event for us. I don't know, like John and I, we got along most of the time. Like we're friends.
Hmm.
We'd have our moments where we would just butt heads, and I can't even tell you why. I don't even know if he could tell you why. We just, we're immature, and
Yeah.
we're both lead, singing lead and doing things like that, and just we'd butt heads and stuff. But whatever it was, we'd hit that stage, and we just had a chemistry. It was just like he could say something, I could respond.
Hmm.
I could go off on some tangent, and Dan and Darren, whatever, we just musically follow along, and that's what was. Um, it kept it fun for us too. Like we try and play a good show. Some nights are better than others.
Right. Yeah.
But it was the banter, I think, that probably I'd imagine, kept a lot of people like coming back or enjoying it, because you were never going to get the same show. We weren't
Right.
going to play
Right.
the same set list. I mean, we were turning on a dime constantly. I mean, we were flying by the seat of our pants. It's just, but we knew the music well enough and stuff that we could just sort of go this way, go that way, and oh, let's just come back to this, isn't it? We haven't played that song in a couple months. It's fine. We'll just play it, and
Yeah.
it sounds like we've been playing it already. It's
Yeah.
like
That's
we
awesome.
did, we had a chemistry. Had a
Yeah,
chemistry.
definitely had the chemistry, and then also the chemistry with the fans. Like I would go to your guys's like message board on a regular basis and like made friends with people online as like early social media, where
Yeah.
every day we'd go like through and discuss things and be like, oh, this is coming out, and it wouldn't even just be about music, it'd be all sorts of topics, but it was just like that community and that fan base was uh I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. So I appreciate all those memories and all that entertainment you gave me over the years. And
Yeah, man.
I'm really
My
excited
pleasure.
for Radical. When do you have a release date in mind?
I've got. I'm going to be shooting a video at the end of this month, so we're in January 2021, and I'm looking to pretty for certain get the first single out at the end of February, probably like one of the last Fridays on February. And then probably do another single or two with a video, and then do like a summertime like full length release.
Great.
So I'm just sort of slow rolling, letting people know who I am, and making those connections, and then just sort of building upon hopefully some momentum, and just seeing what happens.
And the Instagram to get all that information, you're at Adam Lohrbach on Instagram, and then is it Radical
Music.
on Instagram
Yeah,
as well?
Yep, and that's where I spend most of my time. Radical music.
Yeah. So check that out. Follow it if you are into pop punk. Go back and listen to the Homegrown stuff. Get familiar with all that stuff, and then check out the new releases that he's got coming out later this year. Adam, thanks so much for being on the Bill Squire Show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for asking, man. This is a great conversation. It was really good.
This is the Bill Squire Show.